Alrighty, here we go. Doing another video, tackling another section of the Advanced Cicerone exam syllabus with a glass of homebrew. Today's topic is going to be pairing beer with food. It's going to be interesting to compare the level 2 syllabus versus the Advanced Cicerone syllabus and talk about what topics are new, about knowledge areas to focus on in this adventure. And so what I'm going to do is switch gears into my PowerPoint and then go through what I've discovered, what's new, and what's worth focusing on. So let's have some fun. All right, let's do this. So we've been through the first 4 sections of the Advanced Cicerone exam syllabus in my previous videos, but tonight's session is on section 5, pairing beer with food. We're going to dive through this, talk about some of my exam strategy as far as scoring, but then sift through all the content in the syllabus, but comparing it to the certified Cicerone syllabus and then highlighting what's new, like what topic areas were not in level 2. So for people like me or anyone else going down this journey knows where to focus on expanding their knowledge areas. So let's go right into it. Section 5, pairing beer with food. So again, talking about scoring, I always like to recap this in all of my videos. This section overall is showing 15% of the overall knowledge areas, right? But that's broken down into the written, the oral, the tasting. If you look into this section, you'll see it's 10% overall is into the written exam, 5% into the oral. Right now I'm focusing on the written exam, so I like to look at the numbers as far as what percentage of content this area is going to be contributing. So this is 13.33% of the written exam will be on pairing beer with food. So it's very good to know that. It's not one of the prevalent areas, but it's still important. Overall, let's talk again about the passing score. The Advanced Cicerone certification, passing it, you need an 80% score. You need 75% on tasting, which we'll get into that in a second. I do like to consider the tasting exam because for myself, some of the off flavors I'm not that strong with. And I'm going to assume I'm only going to get a 75% on that, which is the minimum passing score. So what are the options for me? So regarding the written exam, if I ace the oral exams, which is part of the in-person, I still need to get a 79% on the written exam. If I get about halfway through the orals, I need an 85% on the written. And if theoretically I bomb the oral exams, I can still pass if I get a 92 or higher on this written exam. So that's worth keeping in mind. So let's dig right into this section 5, pairing beer with food. So it starts off, section A, possible outcomes of successful beer and food pairings. You'll see here, this is the same as level 2. Desirable flavors are highlighted in both the beer and the dish. Combination of the two invokes memory, emotion, and or deeper thought. And pairing creates new flavors not originally present in either the beer or the dish. Meaning when you bring these two complementary items together, it gives you more. Like 1 + 1 is greater than 2 kind of thing. Moving on to section B, beer and food vocabulary. Okay, so they talk about common beer flavor descriptors, and then food vocabulary. A lot of it's the same, describing specific food taste beyond basic identification of key ingredients, understanding some cooking techniques and their effects on flavor. Here's where it starts to drift. So in level 2, we had familiarity with a range of foods and ingredients, but now it's a familiarity with a wide range of foods and ingredients, and we'll get into that shortly. And you'll see a whole new line item here. Yellow is new. Yellow means not in level 2 syllabus, but new in level 3. Familiarity with a wide range of cuisines and common dishes. Some pairing concepts. So we talk about intensity. So the impact or weight of the beer, right? The beer's intensity is determined by the levels of several characteristics. You'll see there's a lot of them here. That's why beer's pretty complex, right? We have malt flavor, hop bitterness, sweetness and body, alcohol content, carbonation, tartness, and sourness. Fermentation-derived flavors such as esters or phenols, hop flavor and aroma. And then specialty ingredients or processes. So whether you're adding fruit, coffee, or barrel aging the beer. Now we're going to move on to other parts of intensity. So a dish's intensity is determined by the interplay of several characteristics. So here we're talking about the food side of things, the flavor impact of individual ingredients, the preparation or cooking method, the spices used, sauces served alongside that, and then the levels of fat, umami, sweetness, bitterness, saltiness, sourness. Moving into flavor interactions. So here's where we start to get we're diving a little deeper here. We're starting with things that were common with level 2. So complement, resonate, harmonize. Then we're talking about contrasting flavors. Then we're talking about cutting. So a beer that can help refresh your palate by lifting, cleansing, or removing the richer fatty flavors of food from the palate, right? So these first 3 flavor interactions were kind of in scope for level 2, but now 4 new ones. So now we have to know about accentuating. We have to know about canceling. We have to know about clashing and also softening. So we're getting more into the nuances of the relationship between beer and food pairings. And after this, we continue into the common beer and food interactions. So we're talking about malt flavors, such as complementing toasted and caramelized flavors in a variety of foods, or soothing and softening capsaicin heat, which is spiciness. Now, in hop flavors, depending on the hop variety, you can complement fruit, citrus, herb, and spice flavors in the food dish. Going into fermentation-derived flavors. Okay, we have our esters. So in level 2, we had to talk about complementing fruit flavors, right? But now we have a line item about complementing dairy. That's new. And in phenols, we have complement spices, contrast fat and umami. But now we also have a line item about can become harsh with some pairings. So knowing about which food beer pairings maybe clash, right? So we have to be more aware of some of those. Moving into carbonation. So carbonation cuts fat, umami, and sweetness, but it accentuates capsaicin heat. And in bitterness, cuts fat, umami, sweetness, accentuates capsaicin heat, can create harsher metallic effects with certain foods, such as like fish, salmon, can complement bitter foods. Going into roastiness. So in level 2, we talked about complementing chocolate, caramelized, or burnt flavors, cutting fat, contrasting sweetness. But now we have to be more aware of how to accentuate umami. And alcohol can cut fat, complement sweetness, and accentuate capsaicin heat. Talking about tartness and sourness. So can brighten some food flavors, can complement or accentuate sour flavors, may favorably contrast fat, umami, or salt. And then sweetness can soothe capsaicin heat and other spices and is accentuated by saltiness. Now we get more into the whole more elaborate side of it. So creating pairings. So this was technically part of level 2, matching intensities of beer and dish so that one doesn't overpower the other. And then considering the flavor interactions. And then in designing a meal, so the intensity of dishes and pairings generally increasing, right? As the meal progresses. That was in level 2. But now we're going to have a whole focus on planning a meal around a unifying theme. So being able to really talk through how you would deliver a beer food experience. And again, classic beer and food pairings. They give an example here, but you have to know others. One example is including blue cheese with barley wine, oysters with Irish stout, mussels with wit beer. And now here we dive a little deeper in level 3, right? So common uses with cooking with beer. Used in place of water or another liquid as an ingredient or a cooking medium. But now we have to know exactly how, right? We have to really dive into examples of that. So making batters, making baked goods, marinades, brines, and dressings, braising, roasting, deglazing, and other sauces, soups or stews, and desserts. So really knowing how a beer can be used in all of these examples. And then moving on to flavor effects. This is all part of level 2. Concentrating beer through cooking intensifies non-volatile flavors because they don't boil off. So bitterness can intensify exponentially because if you boil down a bitter beer, it becomes more bitter, right? Malt flavors and sweetness increase and sugars caramelize. Volatile hop and ester flavors decrease and may disappear entirely. So you might say, hey, this has such great hop aroma. Well, it might not last if you're cooking with it, right? Astringent burnt flavors of roasted malt can increase and may become unpleasant. So it's a balancing act if you're going to use these. And the delicate hop and fermentation flavors in a beer can be brought to a dish by not cooking the beer, such as using an IPA in a salad dressing. Interesting. And so, in summary, this is actually not a lengthy review because the syllabus was kind of brief, but the content you have to know is kind of lengthy. We have a wider range of foods and ingredients to be aware of. We have to be familiar with a wide range of cuisines and common dishes. Now, there's 7 flavor interactions that you have to be familiar with instead of 3. So that's where you really have to build your knowledge. And a focus more on fermentation-derived flavors. You have to know about where you can accentuate umami. And this is a big one, I think, more for the oral exams, I believe, but designing a meal plan around a unifying theme. And then cooking with beer, it's a bit of a deep dive compared to the past. So it isn't as extensive as the other syllabus sections, but this is really a key area where the Cicerone organization wants people to really bring more to the table, because part of the beer experience is knowing how to enjoy beer. And it's not just about ordering a pint and drinking it. It's about having it as part of a meal, part of the overall experience. So I look forward to studying this part of the syllabus extensively and being able to bring more to the table as far as like educating people about beer with food. So I have a little bit more to dive into related to this because there is the Appendix A section, which kind of goes hand in hand with Section 5. And I'm going to focus on that separately in another video soon and dive through what's new there also. But anyway, thanks for your time. And if you have any thoughts, give me some comments in the video here, and I'll talk to you next time.